This season of My Hero Academia never ceases to amaze me. The last episode was peak cinema, and we all know how Studio Bones delivered with that one. You would think that they'll turn down the heat a little, but no, they maintained the intensity and cooked another beautiful meal with the final 2 episodes of this season. I've said it before and I'll say it again, this is the best season of the entire series, and if you haven't been watching, you're missing out.
It's a classic. I ain't gonna say it again, it's a classic.
The central conflict of episode 20 revolved around the intense and complex relationship between Toga and Ochaco. With Toga's clones flooding the battlefield and overwhelming the heroes, Uraraka desperately reaches out, telling Toga she's changed since their last encounter. She now understands that the reason Toga can't fully use Twice's quirk is because she's mixing her bloodlust with love. This plot point is one of the most polarizing in the entire series. For some, Toga and Ochaco are just boring side characters, and for others, this plot point just isn't as interesting as others, which is understandable. It may not resonate with everyone, especially when compared to the Todoroki family storyline. Toga and Ochaco's connection mirrors the dynamic between Deku and Shigaraki. The two heroes are reaching into the darkness, desperately trying to save the villains they face. Yes, Toga has committed terrible acts, but Ochaco isn't here to redeem her, she's here to understand her. That's the message Horikoshi has woven throughout the story. These villains are not born evil, they're created by broken homes, societal rejection, and by deep, painful wounds that never healed. In the episode, we revisited Toga's heartbreaking backstory, gaining a deeper glimpse into the pain of her family life. After finding her with a dead bird, her parents, confused and horrified, took her to quirk counseling, desperately trying to force her into being normal. Toga watched how others expressed love but couldn't understand why her way of loving was seen as wrong. When her parents discovered she drank her friend's blood, something she did out of the desire to help, they were disgusted. Instead of trying to understand her, they condemned her as rotten, going as far as to even regret ever bringing an inhuman creature into the world. Toga's backstory draws a lot of similar real-world parallels to conversion therapy. When Toga as a child drank the blood of that bird, she didn't do it to cause harm. She did it because that's simply who she is. Her quirk and her urges are an intrinsic part of her. The true tragedy lies in the negligence of both her parents and the quirk counselors. Instead of trying to understand her, they forced her to repress her very nature, and in doing so, they led her down a darker path. With the right guidance, if they truly tried to understand her quirks and her urges, they could have taught her how to manage them and how to navigate the world with some self-control. They could have handled her blood drinking stuff in private. You know, the more I think about it, I don't even think that would even work. Toga might have just been cooked from the beginning, honestly. Toga's pent-up rage is so overwhelming that her clones start morphing into the heroes themselves, feeding off the blood splattered across the battlefield. Froppy steps in, trying to be the voice of reason. She tells Toga how Ochaco is breaking all of the rules by refusing to take her down or to capture her, doing everything in her power to reach her. This has been Horikoshi's message ever since Twice's death, that stopping the villains is far better than killing them. Even if it might seem impossible, it's still worth trying. Ochaco pleads desperately for Toga to listen, but her words fall on deaf ears as Toga, consumed by fury, stabs Ochaco in the stomach. All of this could have been avoided if Deku had just knocked her out in the first place. Toga unleashes Sadman's Legion to its fullest, releasing an overwhelming swarm of clones, and the anime perfectly captures just how apocalyptic this power is, and it's clear now why the heroes feared Twice so deeply. With the battlefield in chaos, none of the heroes at the mountain villa are capable of fighting all of the clones at once. Ochaco finds herself in the same situation that Hawks faced, but this time it's even worse. As the clones rush her, Ochaco fights back, causing them to float in the air. Ochaco's actions highlight the differences between the old generation of heroes and the new. The older generation will focus on victory at any cost, defeating villains through brute force, but this new generation understands that hero society isn't just black and white. It's more than just hero versus villain. Well, everyone except Bakugo, he just wants all the smoke. Ochaco's drive to be a hero wasn't just about securing the bag, but about bringing joy to others and making them smile, even at the cost of herself. I do think Horikoshi could have developed her ideals more, because I'm not gonna lie, Ochaco telling a serial killer that she's jealous of her smile is nasty work. Studio Bones absolutely outdid themselves with Ochaco's quirk awakening. The way they depicted her using her anti-gravity particles was breathtaking. The entire scene was executed so beautifully, with the scale of her powers feeling even larger than it did in the manga. The music elevated the moment to new heights, and bro, you Yuki Hayashi is simply legendary. Hiroyuki Sawano is still my favorite anime composer, but over the years, Hayashi has really been climbing up there. His work on MHA and Haikyuu is iconic. Listening to his music makes you feel like you can do anything. I bump that shit in the gym. Ochaco's quirk awakening is similar to Shigaraki's in a way because both of them are able to transfer the effects of their quirks through contact. You could even say it's symbolic of her desire to lighten Toga's emotional burden. What truly elevated this episode to greatness was the voice acting. Ayane Sakura, who voices Ochaco, went above and beyond to the point where she was actually crying during and after recording her lines. You could feel that raw emotion pouring through every scene. And the voice actress for Toga also delivered an outstanding performance, capturing Toga's inner turmoil and pain. The emotional depth of these two actresses brought to their roles was so powerful that it didn't even feel like they were acting. This might be the best voice acting I've heard in the series, no joke. My Hero Academia already boasts an exceptional cast, but this episode was a testament to their passion, dedication, and the deep connection they have with their characters. Ochaco finally breaks through to Toga after pleading with her to speak her truth. Standing firm in front of the person everyone sees as a monster, Ochaco offers her something no one else has: the permission to be human. This isn't about forgiveness. Ochaco made it clear before that she could never forgive Toga. Some might find this controversial, but at the end of the day, this is shonen. And in stories like this, the greatest power is talk no jutsu. Usually talk no jutsu can feel forced, but here it was necessary. The truth is, Ochaco was never built to take down villains one-on-one like that. She's never been a powerhouse, so her strongest weapon was always going to be her words. Toga reflects on everything, the way she used her powers to become people she loved, only to twist that love into something bitter and angry. As she looks at Ochaco, she realizes that Ochaco had used her quirk to give all of the heroes a safe landing, but now Ochaco is bleeding out, so Toga consumes her blood to save her. She gives Ochaco a blood transfusion, which was her final act of love. Toga's quirk, which allows her to match anyone's blood type, could have made her the greatest medical hero the world had ever seen. She could have saved countless lives, donating her blood to hospitals, being the hero she never thought she could be. It's heartbreaking to think how different her story could have been, but instead she used her powers selfishly to fill the emptiness inside her, and now in her last moments she chooses to save someone else. Toga died the way she lived, free in her own way, but this time her final moments are different. They're not about herself, they're about helping someone she loves. She died with a smile on her face, remembering Ochaco's words that she was the cutest girl in the world. Farewell, Toga Himiko. See you in hell. After all the tears dried up, Studio Bones came in clutch, adapting one of the most hyped fights in the entire arc. All Might, excuse me, Iron Might versus All For One. And bro, I was beyond ready for this. When All Might declared I am here to All For One, I lost it. The support items from his car and suitcase wrapped around him on some Tony Stark type shit, unveiling his new armored suit, and man, this was straight gas. Studio Bones absolutely nailed the adaptation of Armored All Might. I thought the entire fight would be heavy CGI, but they surprised me. They only used CGI for the transformation and it looked clean. The animation was smooth, the soundtrack was perfect, and the direction of this fight top tier. The suit was crafted by none other than Melissa Shields herself, comes packed with some insane gadgets. All Might's suit was designed to mimic his students' quirks. He used Red Riot inspired shields to block All For One's attacks, followed by electric wires to latch onto him and shock him, just like Black Whip and Charge Bolt. The electricity messed with All For One's regeneration, and then All Might powered up his leg with Sugar Man's strength to deliver a disgusting kick on All For One, copying Deku's shoot style. Seeing all of this animated was nothing short of epic, and the poetic touch of All Might drawing inspiration from the very kids who have idolized him their whole lives was just beautiful. If you guys have ever read or watched The Dark Knight Returns, you'll catch so many references to that here. All For One plays the Superman role while All Might is Batman. From the armor to the tactics, this fight had serious Batman vs Superman vibes, and knowing Horikoshi's love for comic books and Star Wars, you can bet these parallels were intentional. All Might is putting everything on the line just to stall All For One. Meanwhile, All For One hasn't changed at all. He's still living with All Might rent free in his head. All For One's biggest flaw has always been his ego, and this season almost every hero has used that to their advantage. Despite arguably being at his strongest, All For One is missing the one thing that's defeated him over and over again, and that's willpower. Imagine a 50-year-old scrawny man beating the shit out of the self-proclaimed demon lord. For centuries, All For One ruled Japan doing whatever he pleased because no one had the strength to stop him. The reason All Might defeated him twice wasn't just because of One For All, it was because of his relentless drive and his unwillingness to never give up. That's why All For One hates him so much. For decades, All For One has only cared about his own selfish goals, while All Might's philosophy of plus ultra to go beyond has pushed every hero in this series to surpass their limits. It's given them the courage to face impossible odds. Meanwhile, All For One has been grooming Shigaraki to become his mirror image, needing that hatred to still One For All. But deep down, he's panicking. He knows he can't match All Might's resolve, and there's a chance that even now, All Might could beat him again. All Might was born in a world where crime ran rampant and All For One ruled Japan with an iron fist. All Might lost his entire family during this time, which became the driving force behind his desire to become a hero. Just like Deku, young All Might couldn't stand idly by while innocent people suffered. He threw himself into danger, refusing to let fear hold him back. It was during one of these moments that he met Nano Shimura. Inspired by her courage and selflessness, All Might begged her to train him. He couldn't accept the broken state of the world where grief and hatred kept spinning in an endless cycle. He wanted to create something better, a world where everyone could smile, but in order to achieve that, he needed to become the symbol of peace, a beacon of hope people could depend on. His dream was born from the harsh reality of a world that had no one else to save it, so he took it upon himself to be the pillar everyone could lean on. All Might's fight with All For One rages on, and he stabs All For One with an acid injection, causing the villain to rewind in age, getting slightly younger. And we've seen this happen in his battles with other heroes. The more damage he takes, the faster he rewinds. All Might was an absolute badass in this episode, especially with his maniacal laughter. For a guy without a quirk, he sure knows how to stir some shit up. He looked crazier than Shigaraki at some points, and even when All For One threatened him, All Might didn't flinch, he just continued laughing. Shout out to Kenta Miyake, that was a fantastic performance. He's already taken so much damage, fractured ribs, full body contusions, he can barely breathe, but he doesn't care. He's willing to push himself to the edge to keep All For One's focus on him, even if it cost him his life. This was excellent from start to finish. Who would have thought that this season of My Hero Academia would end up being the best in the entire series? We were left on cliffhangers with All Might vs All For One and Deku vs Shigaraki, and now it's been officially confirmed that the next season will be the final one. It truly feels like the end of an era. I still remember exactly where I was when season 1 of MHA first dropped. Bro, back then I was a huge Naruto fan, and Naruto had just ended, while Attack on Titan was on a 4-year hiatus after season 1. But then MHA came along and really filled the void left by Naruto. I know a lot of people love to hate on MHA, but at the end of the day, we were all being fed 7 seasons and 4 movies. That's no small feat. We were eating well. After this episode, we've got 31 chapters left to adapt, which means the final season will most likely be 12 to 13 episodes, just like season 1. This season was quality, and Studio Bones needs to maintain that same level for the final season. Either keep it on par with season 7 or surpass it. Bones does have another anime coming out next year called Gachiakuta, which is also highly anticipated by a lot of fans. But luckily, Studio Bones is divided into smaller teams that work on different anime and movie projects, so hopefully that doesn't interfere with the schedule for the final season of MHA. Thank you to everyone who stuck with the channel, man. It does mean a lot to me that people actually enjoy the content I put out. It really motivated me to keep on going. Don't forget to like, comment and subscribe. Let me know how you felt about this season. Once again, thank you all for watching the video. Check out my MHA playlist, and until next time, stay blessed.